Are we live?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Time to look profesh.
So here we are, yet another Friday with the K6 office hours. And today, as you might have noticed, we've switched out Nicole for Floor. Nicole was feeling a little bit under the weather, so we decided to ask her not to join for her own health's sake.
Yeah.
Simme, as always.
I think we voluntold her not to join.
Yep. The best kind of volunteering.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Floor. I'm a technical program manager at K6, and previously I have played Simme, and today I play Nicole. And we're joined
You're equally amounts of a lookalike to both me and Nicole, I think. So it shouldn't be that much of a difference.
I am just that versatile face. Yeah.
And today we are joined by Marcus Olsson, developer advocate at Grafana.
Very, very happy to be here. Very happy to join. It's my first office hours with K6, but I hope it's the first of many. And I'm the developer advocate at Grafana Labs. So I work mostly with the developer experience when it comes to plugin development, and I tend to work a lot with the open source community and plugin authors out there, helping them through getting started with plugins and the obstacles and every single question they might have. I might not be able to answer them, but if I'm not able to, then usually someone else is able to. So it kind of works out anyways. So that's kind of me.
And you've been at Grafana about the same time as I've been on K6, I think, about 2 years, right? Something like that.
Oh yeah, you're right. It's almost exactly 2 years. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, time flies. It's been a while. I didn't start with plugins right away. It's kind of been a journey, there's a lot of things going on with Grafana that we want to tell the world about. So there was not a shortage of things to talk about and advocate for. But yeah, it's been changing a lot.
What was what was the employee count when you joined? Roughly?
Oh, I don't know.
Had you even reached 200 at that point?
Oh yeah. So, I mean, I think it was actually, I want to say like around 100. So I think we've doubled, but I can't be sure. I can't remember. It was not like in the tens, at least. I think it was something like 100, maybe even 90 actually. So something like that.
Now I think we're about, because with us joining as well, and I think there was another acquisition announced today well.
Yeah.
So now I think we've actually surpassed 400 and continue to grow. So it seems like sky is the limit for the amount of engineers you can put in one company to work on visualization.
We're growing in many other teams as well, but yeah, the engineers we're definitely looking for talented engineers. I mean, it's crucial to what we want to create. So, for sure.
And as always, we are hiring, and so is Grafana. So have a look at the career pages if you want to work with us. We want to work with you for sure.
Exactly, and if you don't apply, maybe we'll just acquire you. Is there anything you can say about this last acquisition?
Yeah, odds are increasing.
Okay, so at Grafana currently you work with developer experience regarding or around plugins. And does that also include Grafana dashboards and things like that, or is it pure plugins that you focus on?
So right now it's, plugin development is kind of taking up all my time, and there's, plenty of things to do in that area that I'm currently not able to do. So there's unfortunately, I'm not covering dashboards that much. I dabble a little bit. If people have questions, or if they're struggling with building their dashboards. I do enjoy, I built a fair share of dashboards in the past as well. So I do try to help out where I can, but it's not my main focus. I have been doing a few webinars on dashboard building and, getting started with it, best practices, stuff like that. So, but it's not, my main focus.
And I mean, you and we first met, I think, about 10 years ago or something like that, because we used to play board games together back when Marcus lived in the same town as me.
Yeah, back in college, right? Or
yep,
were we
just after, I think, because you were working at a big company in Linköping back then, I remember.
Correct. Yeah.
And so I know you do a lot of other things as well, except working with Grafana. Now I don't know if it's been that much given the COVID situation, but I remember that you've been hosting the Go meetup in Stockholm as well for a couple of years, together with Peter, right?
Yeah, Peter Hellberg. He's an amazing developer, amazing Go developer for sure. Unfortunately, we haven't really been able to do, obviously in person meetups these days, and so it's been a while since I had a chance to meet people in person at those meetups. But yeah, they were a ton of fun, and especially when Peter was the one that actually started the meetup group, and I joined a few years after. And because that was how long it took me to discover Go, and then I joined, and I was like, oh, that was actually my first experience doing some form of community DevRel-ish thing, and then it kind of spiraled into where I am today. So I actually thank the Peter and the meetup group for where I am today, because that kind of showed me how fun you can have when you're a group of similar people with similar interests, and people want to build stuff together. That was really cool, actually. So yeah. But again, that's meetup. Physical meetups is something that I really hope to pick up again when it's safe and all that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Same. Whenever that is. Feels like we've been at home for ages now, but it feels a little bit optimistic with all the vaccines rolling out now in Sweden as well. So hopefully, fingers crossed, in a not too distant future.
I hope to see you all. Yeah.
And you're quite a serial organizer as well, Flor.
Yeah, I dabble in organizing every now and then. It's true.
Okay, dabble. So
no, I definitely love my meetups, and I mean, I think it was a really interesting challenge to move online with meetups and conferences, and definitely learned a lot that we want to bring to the events as well when we go in person again. But definitely miss hallway tracks, which is super hard to replicate. Yeah.
But you all have kept at it during the pandemic as well, right? You still do meetups on a weekly basis. And what meetup is that? So
I've done I'm in the Ruby Amsterdam group, and then there is a DevOps Amsterdam group, which also the organizers of DevOps Days. And so we've been at it quite frequently, but also there's been a weekly meetup on an open source topic, contributing.today, and that's been super fun. Ta-da! Oh, I was already linked. Yeah.
Nice.
On a weekly cadence. I mean, we're on a tiny little summer break right now because all three of the organizers all switched jobs. I was the first to jump ship. And so we're doing a little summer break, but then we'll be back again. It really started as a sort of interlude to FOSDEM, the big open source conference in Brussels. We just liked it so much that we kept at it. It was mostly for us three also to just learn new things by inviting people on the show and just asking them a bunch of questions. I always have a bunch of questions, and learn from that. And if there's people tuning in for those, then awesome, right? But not required.
Where can I watch these? I'm sorry, but I didn't know about them. Where can I start? Oh, that
Here.
one. Okay. Oh, awesome.
And for the Ruby NL and the DevOps NL or DevOps Amsterdam, where can people find out more about that?
Shall I post those in the chat, or
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
did you want me to spell them out and you?
No. Feel free to post them. And
Okay.
Marcus, if anyone is interested in doing something around Go in Stockholm, will there be more meetups in the future once things get safer, or are you looking to do other kind of meetups?
Well, I will definitely be doing a bunch of monitoring and observability meetups when time and the current situation allows. But I certainly hope to be in the Go meetups as well. Maybe not as frequently as I have in the past, but yes, I do love that community, so I will check back regularly.
And that one is at this URL for anyone interested. Ta-da!
Nice. Yep, go there, join. We're also on, if there is any Gophers in the audience, we are on the official Go Slack. Well, unofficial. I don't know if it's official by now, but there is a Go Slack, and there is a hashtag Sweden and hashtag Stockholm channel there. So if you for some reason forgot the link, you can ask us there instead.
Yeah, and there's a East Sweden channel there as well if you want to go on Go and GDG meetups in Norrköping and Linköping.
Yes, there's tons of good meetup group for Go all over Sweden and Scandinavia for that matter.
And DevOps Amsterdam, you find the link below as well. Okay, so if we try to steer over a bit to plugins, because that's really what we're here to talk about today, and plugins in general. I mean, if you want to create a plugin for Grafana, what would your suggestions be to get started? Where should one start if you've never written a plugin for Grafana before and you want to get started?
Great question. I would say the first thing you should do is to do one of our tutorials. There is a tutorial site at grafana.com/tutorials. And if you head over there are a few tutorials specifically for plugins. So we do have a number of types of plugins. So there's a tutorial for each type of plugin that we do support. So for example, if you want to, I will assume that people joining this are familiar with what Grafana is by now. So if you want to create like a visualization, you want to show data in a different way, you can build a panel plugin. And if you want to bring in data, maybe you have an in-house your custom database for some reasons, or you just want you have some data lying around and you don't want to host like maybe Prometheus or Influx or any of the more popular databases out there, then you can definitely build a custom data source to integrate that data with Grafana. So that's the second type of plugins. And really the bulk of all the published plugins are either a panel plugin or a data source plugin. And so definitely check out, yes, exactly. So if you scroll down, you have build a panel plugin and build a data source plugin. And I really think that you should start with one of those two, just to get a feeling for the development flow, the APIs, the packages, and I should note that while we do have another type of plugin called a backend plugin, that one is using Go. You need to be able to code in Go to be able to build those. If you want to build just a data source plugin or a panel plugin, you can build those in TypeScript. So if you're not familiar with any of those languages, I would suggest that use one of the tutorials, and you will get a skeleton or like a scaffold, so you can read through the code and kind of figure it out. Have the TypeScript documentation next to it, and just fiddle around, change a few things, and see it update. So I think that is probably the best way to get started.
And that's quite nice, I think, for people using K6 as well, because it's basically the same stack. We also use Go for backend and for core things, and we use JavaScript as the front end API. So I would guess that many of the people watching this stream have some kind of experience with that, and if they don't worry, because both Go and JavaScript are great languages to pick up. The barrier of entry for both of them is really low as compared to many other languages. So give it a couple of days and you will have something that feels tangible and worthwhile, even if you have no prior experience in those languages, but know how to do programming in general, I'd say.
Definitely. Does K6 supports plugins?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Also written in Go.
Oh, sweet.
Or not really plugins, because they are not loaded at runtime, but it supports extensions. And we use a similar method to what Caddy uses. So you'll be able to write plugins or extensions, and you'll be able to compile them as part of a bespoke K6 binary. So they obviously won't, at least not currently, be usable in the cloud, but you're able to use them with the OSS product.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that. I will definitely check that out. Yeah, so in contrast then, Grafana plugins, they are actually running in the browser normally, but from 7.0, we introduced the concept of, backend plugins that actually do run on the server, much like what you're explaining then. So
would you be able to use those with the Grafana Cloud as well? The backend plugins, that is?
So yes, it is possible, but right now we only support. So the way it works is that a plugin specifies a binary, and it has to be
Marcus,
statically compiled.
You cut away for a second. What do you currently support? Because that was not.
Yes, so we currently support. Maybe I should start from a little earlier. So to build a backend plugin, that will actually build a binary that will be shipped with your plugin, and that will actually start a gRPC process, or it start a process on the server that communicates over gRPC with the Grafana server. So in theory, you could build a backend plugin in any language that supports gRPC. In practice, if you want to install that on hosted Grafana, that means that the environment needs to support that language. So if it needs a runtime, like Java or Python, the hosted instance needs to support that as well. So that is currently very tricky, but you can for sure if you feel like we officially don't support it. There is very little information and documentation on how to do it, but it should be technically feasible to do it. So right now, the easiest way to do it is through a statically compiled Go binary, and that will definitely run in hosted Grafana.
Cool.
So it was a yes, but.
the best kind of yes.
Yes.
Okay, so once you've gone through the tutorial and you created your first tutorial plugin, say a panel, for instance, do you have any other advice as how to proceed from there? Because I mean, that will obviously likely do something that you've already specified once you're done with the plugin, with the tutorial. But if you want to take it one step further and do something on your own.
Yeah, for sure. So I will share a link here with you. You can actually find the link yourself if you go to the Grafana documentation. But there is a page in the Grafana documentation that I will share with you as long as I can stall you while I bring it up. So there is an overview page. For some reason, I can't bring it up right now. But if you go to, are you sharing the screen?
Yep, or I will shortly. There we go.
So maybe that's even better. So if you, yes, correctly. So if you go down and
Is it
go
this one?
No, that is, although that is a very good, if you're more, like video content, that is a good, that's actually a video. So
Okay.
that's a good way to get started as well. We don't have one for data sources. I'll get to that one. But yeah, so if you go to Grafana, their introduction to Grafana. And then if you scroll down the menu to the left here, you see developers. We're almost, yes, correct. And under there, there's a section called build a plugin. So if you go there, you have kind of this overview page, and it's a start of a developer portal where you can find all the resources that you hopefully need to build something more into advanced. So as I mentioned before, you have the tutorials in there, but once you have something that kind of works, you can look at adding more features. So Grafana supports annotations, for example, and it supports a bunch of features that your plugin can make use of to make it more native, more integrated into Grafana. So there's guides for that. There's guides on error handling and just practices for working with the data formats and stuff like that. And at the bottom, there's more API reference documentation for both the Go APIs and the TypeScript APIs. So I think the next step is to go there, check out some of those links and resources. And obviously, you're probably building a plugin because you have a use case that doesn't exist yet. So for that use case, you probably won't find the specific documentation in Grafana, but hopefully enough to get you started in doing something that will work for you. So yeah, I think that's really the next step. And at this point, you probably should be joining our forum at I believe it's community.grafana.com. That is a discourse forum, and you can join us in the development category in there. Should be one. Yes, correct. So you can, for sure, if you have any questions, you can go there as well. Yeah, and really play around. So a plugin in Grafana is really a React component. So anything that you can put in a React component, you can use in Grafana. So if you already have a library for visualization, you can wrap it inside a React component and just use it as is. Obviously, if you feel like making it more native looking, using our color themes, the built-in Grafana theme will make it a lot, look like it's meant to be there, more built in, that kind of feeling. So those are things that I would look at next. And at this point, also just look at other plugins. The vast majority of plugins that are published, they are on GitHub, so you can just check them out. If you have a use case, look for a plugin that does that use case and try to figure out how they actually accomplish that. So yes. Great, you're already ahead of me. Yes, there is a plugin marketplace for Grafana, and yeah, there's a ton of community plugins built like people like you, and for all kinds of integrations, visualizations, and try them out. See if you like anyone. See if there is a plugin already built for your use case. If so, reach out to them and see if they would be willing to accept contributions, for example.
So say, for instance, that you want to use Chaos Mesh, or you want to do something around chaos engineering, then you can have a look at Chaos Mesh, and then you can click through to their GitHub, and there you have the source for that extension and that plugin, and that will probably give you some hints as how to get started on that specific use case. Because usually, I assume, or at least that's my experience, there are similar things, hopefully already, that you can sort of use as inspiration to get you going, so you don't have to start from scratch.
Yeah, in many cases, you can just copy paste what other people have done. specific, if they're transforming data in a certain way that you're looking for, something like that, or if they're using authentication, look at the plugin that does that. And yeah, it's that link is great, because I think if not all plugins, the vast majority has the plugin or the link to their GitHub page. So also, if you have questions, some of these maintainers for these plugins, I mean, obviously they're doing this outside of their working hours, many of them, so they might not be able to answer questions. But I urge you to, if you're interested in their plugin, reach out to them and, see what they, if they would be willing to answer questions or accept contributions.
So I see in the chat that Naveen Kumar has a very similar question as I have. So how do the plugins that are on that sort of like marketplace page get there? Do you do any due diligence of these plugins before they, land on this page, or are they otherwise recommended by?
Very good question. So we have certain levels of plugins. So we have commercial plugins, we have plugins that we built ourselves. But for the community plugins, we actually let you submit a plugin. Once you're happy with your plugin, your colleagues are already using it, you like it, and you would like to share it with the world, then the next step is to submit it for review. So we do go through a review process before we publish a plugin to grafana.com. And the main reason we do this is, there are two main reasons. The first one being quality. We want to make sure that anyone who install a plugin on grafana.com should have a decent experience, even though it's, built by a big, huge open source community. We still want, some level of quality. So we want to make sure that once you install it, it should work. It should do what it promises to do. And the second thing we look for is security. So this is actually where we spend most of the time reviewing. We look at the code. Is there any, how are you handling credentials? If you're authenticating to an external API, are you encrypting that API token? Are you using TLS? Things like that. And that's really the bulk of what the review is about. And usually we offer some kind of suggestions. We test the plugin in an environment, and we go through it. We click around, we try to use it actually. And this is actually why it takes a little bit for a plugin to be reviewed, because we actually need to set up a test environment, test configuration, click around, try to understand it and use it, and to make sure that it works as intended. And yeah, so.
So how do you keep track, if at all, when the plugin changes? Maybe when new changes are pushed to the plugin.
Yeah, it's a good question. So every version of a plugin will go through the same.
It's gone already. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we review the initial plugin, but we also review every version that comes after that.
So there's basically no big risk, at least, that someone will be able to sneak in vulnerabilities or malicious code, because you will still review it again between versions.
Yes, and we are trying to improve the process as much as we can. We're trying to add more automated testing for security, linting, static analysis. We're trying to add as much of this as possible, but there is a certain level of testing that we need to do manually, and unfortunately, there are things that slip through. And like you said, we can catch it in the next version. But I would actually, if this is a plugin that you're going to use for crucial operations, then I suggest that you actually review it yourself, see if it fits your level of security that you need for your use case. So we do review, and we do may do as much as we can to guarantee that they're safe and secure, but we cannot guarantee it. Unfortunately, that is the real world. We do as much as we can, but if you have a very sensitive use case, then I strongly urge you to review it yourself. Set up firewalls so that the plugin is not making requests it shouldn't, is not reasonable for it to do, things like that.
And do you share the outcome of that review with the maintainer?
Oh yeah, for sure. We're very transparent when it comes to these reviews. So if there are security issues with a plugin, we reach out to them privately and let them know about the issue. And usually they're very fast to acknowledge it, and a release is coming up, basically. And if we ever encounter one of these security issues, we do expedite the review. So we put it at the top of the review line, because again, that's our main priority. So if you develop a new plugin, it might take a little while before you get it in, because we prioritize updates to plugins, because we want a good experience for the end user as well. That's really our main focus. And so better plugins means that more people are using plugins, and that unfortunately means that new plugins might take a little longer before we get to them. But we're constantly working on improving that review process, and hopefully that will be both faster and more secure as time goes on.
So far, to your knowledge, or if you're able to tell at least, has there been any attempt to actually intentionally submit malicious code as plugins?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of. And to be honest, it's if you spend the time to build a plugin like this, and it does mean that you need to learn our APIs and learn about Grafana and all of this, and with hoping that the reviewer will miss something. And of course, there are ways to cover up what you're doing, but hopefully our automated tool will catch this. So, but I mean, most of these things, it's not intended from the reviewer. It's mostly like, heads up, you're not using this, encryption method that we support in Grafana. You should totally check it out. And they're like, I didn't know it existed. I'll go read up on it. And so it's mostly stuff like that. So,
yeah, and that's basically what I've seen in other open source projects as well, that the most common issue is for people to leave, for instance, loggings that they've used during development that might be insecure because they might log out your credentials at some point, or things like that, which is not really with malicious intent, but rather an oversight because the problem that you're trying to solve is so big that you just forget about it as you go along.
And another thing that kind of causes a little struggle for some plugin authors is that for panel plugins, the visualizations, we don't actually support authenticated requests for panels. So if you have a visualization that needs to access an API, we cannot authenticate. We cannot securely authenticate towards that API. So if you're building a panel plugin that makes authenticated requests, we won't accept it, because that means that API token, it gets stored as part of the dashboard definition, which is stored in clear text. So that means that if anyone has access to your dashboard, that means they have access to the credentials. So I strongly urge that if you're doing authenticated requests, then you should build a data source plugin and then connect that to your custom visualization.
That makes sense. We have a question from Mustafa, who asks whether the review process is a formal secure code review process.
So when you say formal, could you clarify a little bit what you expect that to entail? We don't follow any standards when it comes to like that. we review to the best of our knowledge and the tools that we have available. And as every time we discover a new attack vector, we go through the previously published plugins to make sure that we haven't published that in the past. But
Makes sense.
I don't think that we are doing what you're asking for. I think that you're asking for a more, standardized review process, and that's not currently something that we do.
Okay, yeah, he meant standard. So
yeah,
the answer is no then, but it's
okay,
to the best of each person's ability at least.
Yeah.
Do you do any suggestions then for what license people post their plugins under, or anything else that has to do with like how their project is sort of like formulated and structured on GitHub?
So it's up to you to choose a license that makes sense for your plugin. If you're familiar with the recent license change of Grafana, you don't have to worry about your plugin being part of that. So all of the plugin APIs and plugin SDKs, they are still under Apache 2. So if you build a plugin for Grafana, that is still under Apache 2. You don't have to worry about the AGPL license there. So you're free to choose the one that makes sense for your project. We do, if you're a company that you're building a official data source for your product, for example, we do ask that you reach out to us, and so we can walk through, your use case and how we can, fit your use case, and we'd like to help you a little more. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
If you build this amazing plugin, or a plugin that solves a problem that you have at least, and you want to get that listed on grafana.com, and you want to go through this review process, what's the next step to take to get started in that review process? Is there a submit button that you just fill in a form and press submit, or how do you go about getting it listed?
What's in that form? What do you need to know?
Exactly. So there is actually if you share your screen again, I can show you where to go. We do have, since we're an open source project, we do have a GitHub repository to handle all these submission requests. So if you go to github.com/grafana/Grafana plugin repository. So we do have a repository here. And so if you go to, you can actually go to the projects tab. Yes, correct. And then if you look at plugin submissions, you can see the entire pipeline that we're having right now. So if you scroll a little to the right, you can see that some of the plugins we're still waiting for metadata. It could be they're missing information, they're not packaged correctly. And once something is, it passes all our automated testing, then it passes through to waiting for review. And this is when it waits for someone to manually inspect it. And so when we start building a test configuration for your plugin, we're clicking it through, then it ends up in review. And then if we have any ideas or how to improve your plugin or anything like that, we just comment on that submission in GitHub.
Okay, let's see. Is there a K6 one here? I think it should be. Maybe it didn't pass through that process then. Because that's something we're going to talk a little bit about towards the end, the actual K6 data source plugin. But let's get back to that. All right, so you open a pull request and add it to
the repo.json file.
All right.
So if you look at that, you just add your plugin to that file.
Okay, and then it will automatically be added to the project and go through all these stages.
Yes.
I assume.
Well, we do some issue triage every now and then to make sure they have the correct labels and all that stuff.
Excellent. Okay, so one of the things that I know that we talked about earlier in the stream is the DX of the plugins. When we say that you work with the DX of the plugins or the developer experience, what does that mean? What are you doing as part of that?
Yeah, so the people that I work mostly with are actually plugin authors outside and inside of Grafana. So we do have quite a lot of plugin authors inside of Grafana who works with enterprise plugins, and they're working with plugins every day. They go to work and they open up their editor and they work on Grafana plugins. So they are a huge source of feedback for us in the Grafana team. So the Grafana team, they build and maintain the APIs and the SDKs and the tools for building plugins. But our enterprise plugins team, they are really the ones that are using these APIs and the SDKs, and they go through all the pains as plugin authors do in the community. So I do work with them to make sure that, because they're usually a little more ahead when it comes to authentication and tricky enterprise use cases. And the cool thing is that the stuff that they run into are usually stuff that the plugin community as a whole will run into. So that's actually an indication that something will happen, or that we will get a bunch of questions on that in the community as well. But I do work with the plugin authors in the community, and to be honest, that's the most fun of my part of my job. When you ask questions on how to do this in a Grafana plugin, or is there a way to use this API, or is there a way to get annotations in there, or things like that. And if you have an idea of you have this thing you think could be realized as a plugin, reach out to me. I'd be happy to walk you through it. In fact, I do office hours every week, so you can book 30 minutes with me, and we will go through your use case. If you're running into any issues while developing plugins, we can also walk through and look at the bug together and figure out if we can make sense of it. So that's the big part of my job, is just to make sure that you, as a plugin author, have a great experience, basically. And that comes from everything from do I have the information I need to do what I want? Is there enough documentation? Are the APIs? Does the APIs make sense? Does the API make sense, or are they just confusing? Are the tools that we use to build, are they confusing? Does it make sense? Are they robust, stable? Are they buggy? Things like that. So it's really the whole process. And if you're struggling with something along that way, I'm your guy.
All right. So if you want to book a 30-minute session with you, where would people go to do that?
I will paste the Calendly link for you. If you forget it, you can get the Calendly link from my public GitHub profile. So if you go to my GitHub page, there is a link there. It's just my name, Marcus Olsson, but I'll still paste the link in here as well.
I think you might not be able to paste links due to how our streaming solution is set up.
Well, but I sent it to you privately, so maybe you can share it with the wider community.
Let's do that.
But yeah, otherwise you can go to my.
Sorry, Flor, you were quicker than me. So you can book some time from Marcus here, and just as Flor wrote, we did not book two times 30 minutes with Marcus to have him on this stream. That is not how this happened.
Not at all. This is pro bono.
So wait, we didn't put the K6 plugin through the official process, and we didn't book 2 times 30 minutes with him.
That's okay.
Enfant terrible here.
That's
Someone
okay.
needs
We're
to
friends.
give us a slap on the fingers.
No worries.
Okay, so we got a question from Ganesh. K6, can it be used for UI load testing? And just wanted to take a minute and just answer that. currently it's not really possible to use K6 for that. We have projects that are currently in progress to make that possible as well. But for now, no, unfortunately, you can use it to parse the information that you get in return when you query a static asset, for instance. So you would be able to do some kind of basically assessment against the UI, but not in terms of any DOM or any web driver that you could use to interact with the web page as a user would. No, unfortunately not. So currently, I would suggest that you focus on testing the API layer, or that you use, for instance, regular expressions to make sense of whatever you get in return from the page that you're querying. But as Naveen Kumar also points out, you could use batch requests to behave like a browser. It still won't be a browser. You won't have the browser DOM. You won't render things and have timings for that. But you could use that to at least emulate the behavior of a browser. So that is definitely possible. But keep your eyes open on the Grafana organization on GitHub, and hopefully in a not too distant future, you'll be able to try out the XK6 plugin for browser interactions as well. Sorry for that. And okay, so when someone wants to do someone does a plugin and they've booked some time with you to have a look at whatever issue they're facing, and maybe they have some thoughts or ideas or questions around how to best organize their project, or how to best implement their project to make it make the experience as nice as possible for anyone else to use. Do you usually give suggestions for that as well? Maybe how they would organize their options, or how they would set up their configuration, or things like that. And do you have any advice in terms of that you could give that are a bit more generic?
Yeah, for sure. So one thing that I could advise you to do is to avoid doing custom stuff. So while we support building, custom components, if you have, for example, a panel plugin and you want to provide, let's say, your own custom thresholds editor, for example, which is more complex than just a text field, right? And you want to support that for your plugin, so you start building a custom option or a custom editor for that option. And while that is certainly possible, it's harder to make it look more like a native feeling if you do that. You can use our own UI components, but I think that you should go for as much as you can to use the built-in, the standard editors for things like booleans, text fields. We do have more complicated editors as well. So see if something is available that would fit your use case, but because that will make it look a lot better. And one thing that I'm very passionate about is the UX of what will the end user experience be. So if someone installs your plugin and they select the panel plugin in the list of visualizations, what happens? Can they use the plugin right away? Or do they have to go through a series of configuration steps in order to do that? So that is something that will frustrate your users. So as far as you can, try to make, like, as soon as they click the visualization, try to make the first thing they see work. It doesn't have to be perfect, but they need to be able to see something. So, for example, many dashboard users, they have a time series. So assume that the query is a time series, for example, and assume things from the query, use defaults to guess what kind of information they want to display. That is a good strategy, I would say, because then you would get like something cool to look at, and they can make adjustments based on that. If they don't see anything, or even worse, they see an error, they're like, what did I do wrong, or what's next? and they will have to go through the options editor and trying to figure out how they can make this work, rather than how can I make this into what I really want. So that, like, think about how can I get to useful in as few steps as possible. And Grafana does support for panels that you can actually hide options that are based on another option. So if you, for example, have a drop down where you can choose to configure something by absolute or relative values, that might toggle the visibility of another editor. So don't show everything. If you don't have to, make it easier for them to walk through, and add things iteratively. So don't just throw all the configuration options at them. Give them a chance to walk them through and configure that step by step instead. I think that is something that I think a lot of panel plugins could benefit of.
So same defaults is your
same default, pretty much, yeah. A very elaborate way of saying same defaults. Thank you.
All right. So we're starting to run out of time. One thing that I would like to quickly show you prior to actually running out of time is the K6 data source plugin, because that was actually made public today. It's been available for a while, so you have been able to install it yourself on your self-hosted instance of Grafana, but now it's also available at grafana.com, and you'll be able to use it with your cloud-hosted Grafana instance as well. So let me just share my screen again. All right, so this applies to people using the Grafana, the K6 Cloud offering. So if you have a K6 Cloud account or subscription, you'll be able to use this without any more steps needed than installing the plugin and fetching your API key from the K6 app. So once you come to the Grafana plugin marketplace, you can just search for K6, and you'll find K6 Cloud in the list. You click that, and you click install. You then install the plugin to the workspace that you want, or the cloud instance, I think it's called, right? That you want to run it on. And it will be automatically installed to Grafana Cloud. So once that is done, let's see. You can jump over to Grafana, and you can choose to import a dashboard. And then as part of the Grafana plugin, which I think I have here somewhere. There we go. You have a couple of dashboards or example dashboards available that you can use if you don't want to go through the hassle of setting it up yourself. So let's just go ahead and grab that and go back to the import view and just paste that. For some reason, there is a key here that I think shouldn't be there. So let's just go ahead and remove that and click load. Okay, and I've apparently already imported this once, but let's go ahead and overwrite that. First, we select the K6 Cloud data source and then import. There we go. And as easy as that, we'll have access to the data that is available in K6 Cloud. So not just data from the point that you install the plugin, but data as long back as your subscription allows. So you could choose a organization. In this case, I choose Avocado Inc. You can choose one of your projects that you want to see the data for, and one of the tests. So I'll choose test.js, and then you can just switch between the different test runs, and that data will be visualized. Unfortunately, for this project, I don't have any thresholds or checks implemented, but if we were to choose, for instance, Azure pipelines, we might get better. Okay, so I don't have any, apparently, test in the cloud that actually uses those, but they will be there as well if you use them.
So it looks like you're not actually using the K6 data source in the panels here for some reason. So if you look at the graph panel, for example,
yeah, I
if
can
you,
see that. That seems like it's the
default
walking
random
right?
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it should probably be set to data source, right? Because that's a plugin that we actually have. Okay, so this might actually be buggy, and we might need to check it out. Which, of course.
So if you go back, let me just see something. If we're not running, we have a few minutes left.
Yep.
If you go back to the panel, the one they were at, and edit it, and try to select the other. I saw you had another data source K6 in the data source drop down. No, a little bit less in the editor. Yes. So is it that one maybe? And if you change the query type, it doesn't seem like you have any query type here. So you might have to.
Okay, so we want the throughput. So let's just go and drill down to whatever we need. And in this case, it was for the Azure pipeline. Because I mean, these are variables, so they should be.
Yes, they should be connected.
Yeah, but maybe they are not. Let's assume they're not. Okay, so that should be this one. And then if we get
looks like you're getting data at least.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say that is this one probably. All right, so there we have data. So we might need to update the example dashboard. That might be the issue here. But the data source extension or plugin itself seems to be working. Awesome. So if you want to use K6 with Grafana Cloud, that is actually an option. Although you currently have to create the dashboard yourself until we get that sorted out. But it should be an easy way for you to get your data to Grafana without having to rely on APM integrations or having to do Prometheus remote writes or anything like that. You should be able to use it just like that, and it will fetch the metrics for you from K6. So that was basically what I wanted to show.
Awesome.
Too bad the demo gods decided to strike on me, but it was my time. It's been really easy doing demos for a while now. Yeah. So it was bound to happen. And with 2 minutes left, Marcus, is there anything you would like to do a plug for before we end this?
I see what you did there. I would just build a plugin. I will do a plugin. That just go through the plugin tutorials. Get something. It's really cool to see something running that's yours inside of Grafana, and start there and join the forums. And we're also on Slack in the Grafana Slack team in #plugins. So feel free to join there if you want to chat with other plugin authors, or if you have plugin related questions.
And if people want to find you on social media, anywhere they should look?
My name, lower caps, no hyphens, just Marcus Olsson at GitHub, Twitter, wherever you might have a social media account.
Awesome. Flor, do you have anything to add? Anything that needs to be said?
No, not right now. Thank you so much for having me on the show again. This was good. Loved it.
Thanks to both of you. It's been really great having you here, and you're both always invited. Just give me a ping if you want to come on again. And one thing, I'm gonna go on vacation starting right now or in 1 minute. So for the next 5 office hours, you will have Nicole and guests. But you will probably find me in the chat answering questions or mocking Nicole, I guess. So we'll still be in touch. And if not, see you again in September. But Nicole will be here for 5 weeks to give you more of that awesome K6 knowledge while I'm gone. And that's that.
Lovely.
Thank you for this office
stuff.
hours.
Thanks
thank
for
you so
having
much
me.
for being here, and thank you to everyone who's watched. See you again in a week.